Electronic Town Hall. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Eric Thompson, Communications Coordinator with the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, the RDOS. Welcome to our Electronic Town Hall on the Organics Composting Facility at 1313 Grayback Mountain Road. This property is immediately adjacent to the Campbell Mountain landfill. It's located within Electoral Area E. Due to the COVID-19 crisis, the Electronic Town Hall is being held to provide you with an opportunity to learn more about the proposed facility and to ask questions. In just a moment, we'll introduce the panelists who will be taking your calls tonight. First, here's how you can take part in this Electronic Town Hall. You can join the audio-only conference by calling this number, 1-844-992-4726. That's toll-free in Canada and the United States. When you see that link on our WebEx broadcast, it will say the United States, but of course it is Canada as well. 1-844-992-4726. That will enable you to listen to the broadcast and also to participate by hitting *3. That will put you in the queue to ask a question. You can also send us questions via email at publicworks@rdos.bc.ca. Our panelists, we have the chair of the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen, Carla Kazakovich. The chair is watching the meeting tonight and listening to your questions and feedback. She is available to answer questions if someone has one specifically for the chair, but of course the board of the RDOS is remaining neutral on this until all the feedback has been received, and then the board will need to make a decision based on that feedback and the information available on this proposal. Andrew Reeder is the RDOS Public Works Manager. He is one of our panelists tonight, available to answer your questions, along with Chris Garish, RDOS Planning Manager, and from the City of Penticton, Public Works Manager, Len Robson, and Wilbert Yang. Wilbert is an engineering consultant. Now, the RDOS is seeking feedback on a proposal to remove property located at 1313 Grayback Mountain Road from the Agricultural Land Reserve, the ALR. That is the focus of this town hall meeting. Concerns outside of this issue can be brought forward following this public meeting up until October 2nd or any other time if it's unrelated to this particular topic. You can visit rdosregionalconnections.ca or contact Public Works if you have additional feedback after this broadcast. Now, the results of this public engagement process will be submitted to the RDOS Board of Directors for consideration as part of an application to the Agricultural Land Reserve, as I mentioned earlier. We'll start with a little bit of background and then we'll get right to a presentation by Wilbert Yang. The City of Penticton is required to upgrade its wastewater solids composting site. Now, when we talk about wastewater solids, you may have also heard it referred to as wastewater sludge. We'll call it wastewater solids. That site at Campbell Mountain Landfill needs to be upgraded. The site no longer meets updated provincial requirements. The City of Penticton owns the Campbell Mountain Landfill property, and the upgraded composting facility would be constructed within the current Campbell Mountain Landfill property or at a property suitable for the City of Penticton. City of Penticton Public Works Manager Len Robson is here to answer any questions specific to that part of this conversation. The Regional District has identified the area immediately along Spiller Road within the landfill property to house the City of Penticton wastewater solids composting site. There is an opportunity for the City of Penticton to combine resources with the Regional District. There is strong support in the area for developing a new food waste composting facility in this area. The RDOS is planning to build an in-vessel organics composting facility located east of the Campbell Mountain landfill. The site is currently located within the Agricultural Land Reserve, the ALR, on property located at 1313 Grayback Mountain Road. The RDOS is applying for a grant that would fund a large portion of the project's capital costs. The current Campbell Mountain landfill service area includes all or parts of electoral areas B, D, E, F, and I, the City of Penticton, and the Village of Karamias. This project is expected to streamline operating costs by consolidating equipment and staff. It will help reduce odors by 70% and remove leachate associated with the existing Penticton facility. Alternatively, the facility could be sited on the existing Campbell Mountain landfill property with a portion on ALR land. This presents options that are still viable but more costly to develop. The proposals require amending the solid waste management plan and involve legislative requirements to determine the location, including Agricultural Land Commission and rezoning applications. Now, how did we get here? The City of Penticton has completed studies and community engagement involving the options to upgrade the wastewater treatment composting facility at Campbell Mountain. Feedback gathered in 2018 indicated strong support from residents for establishing an organics composting facility, and a 2019 study recommended introducing in-vessel composting, which is an enclosed environment which minimizes noise and odors. Now let's begin with a short presentation by Wilbert Yang. Wilbert is an engineering consultant with Tetra Tech, and then we'll get to your questions, and we'll invite Wilbert to join us now. And I'll just remind you, Wilbert, if you could, to unmute your microphone. And Wilbert has a short slideshow presentation as well.
Great, thank you very much. And I will share my screen. Does everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can, Wilbert. Thank you.
All right, great. So just to recap, a little bit about this project. This project started in 2015 in terms of looking at the feasibility of establishing organic waste processing facilities in the RDOS. Following that study, we did look at nuisance issues with respect to the landfill operations. And following that, we looked at the feasibility of siting organics processing facility on the Campbell Mountain landfill. That was just done last year. As part of the study, we looked at various technologies in terms of how organic waste can be processed. And from there, we were able to put together a spectrum of organic waste processing technologies, from the simplest form, which is a static pile, to ones where there's air being injected into the pile to increase biodegradation of the organic material, to technologies that have a membrane or Gore-Tex membrane on top to help contain the odors, and other technologies that have are fully inside a building to contain odors. We also looked at anaerobic digestion, which is taking the technology level one step further in terms of recovering natural gas from the decomposing organic material. What we have here is the current level of composting on the landfill, which is a aerated static pile. And the recommended technology that we have identified is in-vessel composting, where composting of the organic material is all done indoors so that we can contain the odors from being released to the environment and treat it before it's discharged. Following that, we looked at comparing where this facility could be located. We basically reviewed options for siting it on the Campbell Mountain landfill, as well as on the neighboring property close by. Some of the things that we did see is the fact that the grading on the proposed property is relatively flat. So in terms of preparing the site for a new facility, it was very advantageous and less costly. At the same time, the site would be farther away from residents. So in terms of buffers, there's definitely some advantages from that perspective. This facility was also close enough to the landfill that if need be, we could share mobile equipment, and thereby reduce operating costs. Just to highlight some of the benefits of having this composting facility, the cost of composting food waste and biosolids together is significantly less costly than if done separately. By composting this material, we can trap the carbon in the compost, which would otherwise be released into the environment as methane, which is a contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. Having this operation also extends the life of the landfill as it's being diverted from disposal, and having strict controls in terms of containing it all inside a building will reduce nuisance like odors coming from the property. So ultimately, this is an opportunity to share landfill operations between the two facilities. At the same time, combining biosolids and food waste composting will have a significantly lower cost in terms of building these facilities. And there's also an opportunity in terms of having some of the capital costs being paid for by government grants for processing food waste. At the end of the day, some of the other benefits include more airspace for the landfill, which would increase revenues to the RDOS in the range of $11 to $16 million. And at the same time, this facility would be farther away from neighbors, which would thereby reduce impact. Key findings, the property offers more space for expansion and control of the potential odors. And there's more area to store compost as well as bulking agents. And it also provides the RDOS with opportunities to do more waste diversion activities, such as processing of concrete and asphalt to create aggregates, storing of metal, which could be recycled, storage of discarded mattresses, which could then be managed properly, receiving of commercial wood waste, and construction and demolition materials. The recommendation that from our assessment is to combine food waste and biosolids composting together into one facility to reduce processing costs and at the same time increase the saleability of compost products to local markets. I think the big thing is the fact that there are grant opportunities for to reduce the capital cost of this facility, which would thereby reduce unit operating costs for organic materials. So next step is to look at possible opportunities for the Greenback Mountain Road property. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That's Wilbert Yang, and Wilbert is an engineer. And Wilbert, you've been working on this project now for quite some time, and provided us with quite a bit of information. Is that it for your presentation right now? Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Wilbert. Okay, we'll get you to stop sharing your screen if you can, please, and we'll get back to our main broadcast, our electronic town hall. All right, my name is Eric Thompson. If you just joined us, we are hosting this town hall, of course, due to COVID-19. We are unable to have a public meeting where we can have the public in at this point. And right now, what we're going to do is remind you about participating in this particular town hall, whether you do so by phone or email. So if you'd like to call, the number is 1-844-992-4726. I'll give that number out again. It's 1-844-992-4726. That is toll free. When you call the number, you'll be prompted. And basically, you need to just hit *3 and you'll be in the queue if you'd like to ask a question of one of our panelists. And you can also send an email and we'll relay that information to our panelists. And the email address tonight that we're using, that we're monitoring throughout this electronic town hall, is publicworks@rdos.bc.ca. That's publicworks@rdos.bc.ca. And just a reminder, after this electronic town hall, you can visit the RDOS Regional Connections website. That's rdosregionalconnections.ca, and you'll find more information, including documents that outline this project and the process. You can also get more information if you'd like to mail a letter in, or if you have any other questions following this particular town hall. Now, at this point, I don't see that we have anyone standing by to ask any questions. So we are going to be here till 7 o'clock to make sure that anyone who wants to ask a question can. There are some people watching on either YouTube or watching on Facebook. The messaging app is not available to people who aren't watching through the WebEx platform. But a reminder, all you have to do is phone that number that I mentioned or send an email to publicworks@rdos.bc.ca. At this point, I'm going to ask Wilbert Yang if he can jump in for just a real quick moment on the topic that we're discussing tonight, which is a presentation to the RDOS board. That's the next step. So once we receive all this feedback, that feedback, along with more information on the proposal, will go to the RDOS board. The RDOS board will then need to make a decision on next steps, which could include going to the Agricultural Land Commission. Wilbert, I guess the question really on a lot of people's minds is this technology. The technology specific to this project is in theory ready to go, but you really won't know, the RDOS won't know exactly what it looks like until steps continue to happen. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but generally this technology is being used in a number of other locations. And is it safe to say it's proven technology when it comes to composting as far as reducing odor and limiting leachate, preventing leachate?
One of the best and simplest technologies out there. What we're seeing is that there are more facilities of this type being built in North America or the world than any other technology, simply because it is very simple and very unique in the way it contains odors and leachate, and also produces a high quality compost. What's interesting is this technology has been around since the early 1990s in North America. The first one being built in Edmonton, one of the largest facilities being built in Everett, Washington. And currently in British Columbia, we have 3 or 4 of these facilities being built and operated right now. We did visit a facility in Abbotsford that has been in operation for a little over 7-8 years now. There was a new facilities that was built in Kitimat, and right now in Trail, BC, the regional district of Kootenay Boundary is building one facility as well too.
All right, I'm going to go to our calls now. It looks like we do have on the WebEx platform, you can basically put up a virtual hand to ask a question. And I see here that we have Steve Boltby, I believe is how you pronounce your last name. And Steve, you're on. If you'd like to ask a question, please go ahead.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Okay,
thanks so much. For Mr. Wang, on a cubic meter of sludge, is there an estimate or some sort of given gradient of methane that comes off a cubic meter?
All right, thank you for your question, Steve. Wilbert Yang, would you like to, do you have that information available off the top of your head or with any of your paperwork there?
I don't have that information, but it really depends on the age of the material, because if the material has been decomposing for quite some time, the level of methane produced is certainly much less. But I can certainly find that information for you and provide that information to you.
Great, thank you, Wilbert, and thank you for your question, Steve. And what we'll do is any of these questions, if it's a bit more involved that we don't have the data for right now, we will post it on the RDOS Regional Connections website right away. We'll be on within 24 hours, hopefully sooner, to make sure that you have the information you need. We have another question now. This one is from Kirsten Robertson. Kirsten, go ahead, please. Hi, Kirsten.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's actually Kirsten, and I'm her husband, Simon Wells.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I would like to know how you can be so certain that the odors from this facility can be controlled when the situation is well publicized in Vancouver, that the compost facilities in Richmond and Delta have had huge odor problems, especially with the household waste that you just mentioned that you're going to be introducing here. This sounds like a fairly basic facility, and my understanding is that with some very high-tech facilities in Vancouver, they've been unable to control the odors and that there have been severe problems.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your question. We'll go to Wilbert Yang.
Yeah, I've seen the facilities in Vancouver, in Richmond and Delta, and those facilities are very large facilities that do not have this GORE technology on there. They basically have one level of containment, and they're just much material being processed. This technology or facility has been operating in Abbotsford for more than 8 years, a lot longer than the facilities in Delta. Delta's been updated recently, and certainly that technology is very well established. Not to mention the facility in Seattle, which is probably about 5 times larger than this facility, has been running since 2004 and has been able to manage their odors quite well.
Just to follow up, are they handling kitchen waste or the same type of kitchen waste that's being handled in Vancouver is what's being handled in these facilities you're citing is successfully managing it? Because I understand it's the material as well as the scale of the operation that leads to the odors.
All these facilities are receiving food waste and yard waste. So kitchen scraps, meats, and so forth. So they are exactly the same.
Okay, so your view is that there's nothing to worry about with what's happening.
This technology is quite well established, and it has been very successful in North America.
All right, thank you very much. I'll just remind our callers, after you've had your question answered, if you could lower your virtual hand on the system, that would be great, please, just so that we know who has a question. And certainly we can come back to you again if you do have another one, but if you could lower your hand. And I see Len Robson. Len Robson is with the City of Penticton. Did you have something you wanted to add? I wasn't sure if you had something you wanted to add on the conversation.
I know I've that.
Sorry, I missed that, Len. Okay, no, we're good then. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see. We got the we call it the Hollywood squares, where you see multiple screens here. Okay, so right now I see we still have those two hands up. We have one from it shows on my screen as Kirsten. We just had a question, I believe, from her husband. And if you could lower your hand, unless you had a follow up, and then just from Steve as well. And we have a question up here as well. There is one from Annette, and I'm just going to bring that up right now so that we can read it. I'm just going to quickly check this one. Give me 1 second to stand by. All right. Oh, here we go. Okay, so we've got a question here. No, I don't see that one. There we go. Which road will the trucks bringing the wastewater solids, also known as sludge, which road will the trucks take through Penticton, and where will it come from? So the wastewater solids, which road through Penticton, and where will that come from? So this question, I believe, Len, is that something that you're able to answer for us, or would that be a question that we would pose to Andrew Reeder? Who feels most comfortable with that one? If you could just raise your, there we go. Okay, we'll go to Andrew. And why don't we start with Andrew Reeder, and then we'll go to Len Robson. So again, the question about bringing the material. Now, when people say sludge, we have, of course, wastewater solids, and then, of course, there's the organic material. But which roads through Penticton, where will it come from, Andrew?
Well, I mean, I guess the question was really, I think, around which roads would have come up through the landfill. It was more my understanding there. So we'll be going up Reservoir Road for the organics directly to 1313 Grayback Road. So we'll be going up Reservoir Road to Grayback Road directly into the facility. So it actually, the question may be geared towards some of the landfill lineups that we've had in the past and where this has been a challenge. And this would certainly alleviate some of those issues. It would be the same trucks that would otherwise be going into the landfill would be going to the site instead, and would reduce some of the challenges that we've had with traffic on Reservoir Road. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Andrew. And Len Robson with the City of Penticton Public Works Manager, did you want to jump in on that one as well?
Sure. All of our wastewater sewer sludge comes from our plant at Waterloo Avenue. For the most part, it heads up to Fairview, heads north onto Duncan Avenue up to Government Street down to Johnson Road, up Johnson Road to Upper Bench, and then up to Reservoir Road. And currently it goes into the landfill entrance gate. In the future, if this plant went ahead, it would go up, as Mr. Reeder had just mentioned, up through just past the landfill and directly into the composting facility.
Okay, well, thank you both very much. Thank you for the question. We have another question from Annette, and that is, will there be negative pressure inside the composting facility? And I'm thinking that might be a question for Wilbert Yang. Negative pressure inside the composting facility. Wilbert?
Yes, the facility will have negative pressure. The air will be basically be sucked up so that it will be directed into a biofilter. So by doing that, it will create negative pressure so that if the doors do open, the air from the outside will flow inside the building.
Okay. And then we have a follow-up here as well. Who will own the facility and who will be responsible for running it? And that would be either Andrew Reeder to answer that question or Len Robson. Let's go to Andrew Reeder. Andrew?
So the facility would be owned by the regional district, and it's a partnership with the city, and the landfill function actually would be funding the facility initially.
All right. Now I see here we still have a hand up from Steve Boltby. Steve asked a question earlier. Steve, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would like to know what the current amount of sludge is coming to the landfill today. You could give that to me on an annual basis. And does that coincide with your operating permit?
All right. That sounds like it is a question for Len Robson, and he is going to join us now with that.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Annually, we are delivering approximately 8,000 wet tons of sludge to the compost facility. And yes, that is within permit. We don't actually have a permit anymore, Steve. We run through the organic matter recycling regulations. So that is completely within their guidelines and requirements.
Okay, thank you very much. And just double check with Steve here. Are you good, Steve? Did you have a follow-up?
I'm just collecting some data. I'll have some more questions as we go. So we're currently running 8,000 tons. We're looking at going to 35,000. Is that correct?
Len Robson?
Actually, Steve, just to be clear here, the 8,000 tons of, that's the sewage sludge, the biosolids that's going up there right now. The other portion of that 35,000 would be taken up within the organic matter that's going to be coming from the organic situation. So Andrew may be able to tell you exactly what that is.
All right, thank you, Len. Andrew Reeder, Public Works Manager with the Regional District. Would you like to jump in on that, please?
Yeah, so about 50% of the remainder, so some of that is for growth, it's not the full 35 initially. Some of it would be for food waste, and then the other portion, the largest portion, would be for yard waste. So just basically your yard clippings, prunings, things of that nature.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Steve?
Okay, so I have read on the internet that a cubic meter of sludge produces 20 meters, not squared, but to the third power of methane. Does anybody have any view of that? Is that off? Is that correct?
Andrew Reeder with the Regional District is going to answer that question for us. Andrew?
Sure. I can't actually answer how much it actually produces, but we're actually, believe it or not, we're actually looking at using compost to reduce methane. So one of the things that we're looking at with the landfill right now is something called a biocover. And it's fairly innovative. And what that does is you put a compost basically on top of the landfill. And what it does is it breaks down the methane into smaller carbon chains that would otherwise be more harmful to the environment. So it's by entraining this material and trapping it into compost, it's actually a benefit, not a detriment.
Great. Okay, Steve, we'll ask you to hold on for just a moment if you have another question. In the meantime, if you could lower your hand and then just raise it again if you did want to jump in again. We want to get as many people in as we can with their questions. We have one through our WebEx Messenger service here, and it's, will there be any waste entering the compost facility from private contractors or outside of Penticton or the RDOS? And that question would be pertaining to the proposed organics composting facility. So we'll go back to Andrew Reeder with the Regional District. Andrew?
Short answer is no. So we would be looking at anyone that's in the current landfill service area. So I think at the beginning Eric had identified all the different areas, so the Karameas, Area I, Area D, Area E, Area F. Those would be the participants that would be bringing, Penticton, of course, would be bringing the materials in. Outside areas, Summerland, Soyuz, Princeton, they would not be included as part of this. And certainly out of region, we would not be looking at taking those materials either.
Thank you, Andrew. And just to reiterate, the current Campbell Mountain landfill service area includes all or parts of electoral areas B, D, E, F, G, and I, the city of Penticton, and the village of Karameas. Okay, we have approximately 30 minutes left in our electronic town hall. We appreciate you spending time with us to learn a bit more about the project, answer some of your questions. I just wanted to mention again, if you are trying to get in touch, if you'd like to ask a question, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. If you want to phone in, because people can be watching right now on either the RDOS YouTube channel or Facebook. But if you'd like to participate, you can do so by calling 1-844-992-4726. That's 844-992-4726. It's toll free. And then if you hit *3, you'll be able to ask a question. You'll get in the queue for asking a question. We're also taking email as well through publicworks@rdos.bc.ca. That's publicworks@rdos.bc.ca. And I just want to reiterate as well that the RDOS is looking for feedback on this proposal to remove property located at 1313 Grayback Mountain Road from the Agricultural Land Reserve. That is the focus of this town hall. The results of the public engagement process will be submitted to the RDOS board for consideration as part of an application to the Agricultural Land Commission. As I mentioned, the chair, Carla Kazakovich, is watching tonight and listening to your comments and taking notes, no doubt, as well. And she's also, of course, the director for electoral area E. So a quick scan of our Q&A section here just to see if there are any other questions. And I see one that's just come in. Here we go. This is from Annette. Will there be more sludge coming from other areas within the RDOS? Now, when we talk about sludge, I'm going to ask Len Robson from the city of Penticton to weigh in on this. We're talking about wastewater solids, which is also referred to as sludge. And maybe, Len, I can ask you to clarify what we're talking about there. And then, of course, when we're talking about a proposed organics composting facility, we're talking about material that's altogether different that's coming in from different streams. So, Len, I'll ask you to weigh in on that if you can, please.
Yeah, so just as with regards to this site, or the site that we'll be building in that location, it is intended to handle our residual organic matter that results from our sewage treatment plant process. So that's the material we're talking about coming up here. Right now, we do process some material out of OK Falls for the regional district, and that's it. And my understanding here is the intention is this site is not being designed to handle any other communities' sludge or biosolid.
Great, thank you very much, Len. Another question now. Will you be obtaining an air emissions permit regulating the odors, as is the case in Metro Vancouver? And will there be more public consultation process for the permit? That question, who is best to answer that one? Just looking around here, we're going to ask Andrew Reeder with the Regional District, Public Works Manager, to answer that question for us. Thank you, Andrew.
Sure. We don't have air permits in our regional district. So unlike Metro Vancouver, that process here doesn't exist.
Andrew, thank you.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, to follow up with that, we are looking at a solid waste management plan amendment to look at issues within the region, but there are no permits issued at this time.
Thank you very much. And before we wrap up, I may ask Christopher Garish, if he can, to jump in on the process for next steps, but we'll hold off on that for a moment. But as far as public engagement, certainly the next step would be to present information to the board of directors with the RDOS. And then at that point, the board has to make a decision on potentially taking this proposal to the Agricultural Land Commission to request that that land be taken out of the Agricultural Land Reserve, which is 1313 Grayback Mountain Road. But in the meantime, we have another question from Annette. The property is 80 acres large. How much of it will be needed for the composting facility? And what is the plan for the rest of the property? And I'm thinking that is either going to be a question answered by Wilbert Yang or by Andrew Reeder. And I'll mention that question again. The property is 80 acres. How much of it will be needed for the composting facility? What is the plan for the remainder of the property? Wilbert?
So the current design, it says it's probably about 15 to 20 acres of the property will be used for the facility. So only a fraction.
Okay, and the remainder of the property?
That is up to the RDOS.
All right. Andrew Reeder is going to help shed some light on that. Andrew?
So part of that's going to depend on what the ALC tells us. So at this point in time, we've asked for an ALC exclusion from the ALR. But what we really don't know at this point is what they're going to come back and tell us. So, I think a large part of this is going to depend on what the ALC tells us about the property and what we can and can't do.
Okay, I'm going to put Christopher Garish on the spot then, just on that note, because I think it's really important, because that's really what this conversation is about, is the potential to take land out of the agricultural land reserve. To do that, the Agricultural Land Commission needs quite a bit of information, including the results of the public engagement process, Christopher.
That's correct.
And you're talking about basically a report that outlines exactly what's possible, what the plan is, but there's no guarantees what the Agricultural Land Commission is going to say. They have a number of options at their disposal. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So in terms of the information that we have to provide to the Commission is confirmation that we've met their consultation requirements under the Act. They ask for a copy of the staff report that's considered by the board and any supporting documentation related to that application. So in this instance, I believe we have a report that was prepared by an agrologist that did an assessment of the site, which we'll be forwarding to the Commission. And I believe there's also, and Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong here, a feasibility assessment for the organics facility itself on the parcel, which we'll be providing to the Commission, as well as all the representations received as part of this process. And so the Commission will then take that into consideration, and they have options other than exclusion. We've asked for exclusion, but the Commission can also determine whether to approve in its place a non-farm use approval for the site, which would keep it in the reserve, but would make an exception to allow for a composting facility. So there's a number of different ways it could go with the ALC.
And if the plan was to go ahead, if the ALC gave approval, there would be another public consultation process involved around potential rezoning. Is that correct?
That's correct. The current resource area zoning that applies to the property under the electoral area E zoning bylaw doesn't allow for composting facilities as a permitted use. So an amendment to the zoning bylaw would be required. And again, that could take one of two different approaches, or I guess multiple different approaches. A new zone could be created, a site-specific zone could be created, or a zone from an existing electoral area bylaw introduced into Area E, i.e. an industrial zone to allow for composting. But the Local Government Act stipulates that any amendment to a bylaw has to be subject to certain public consultation requirements, which obviously we would be undertaking.
Excellent. Thank you very much for clarifying that. We have a couple more questions we want to get to now. Another one through our WebEx platform, and the question is, if the odor is strong, what can we do about it if there is no permit setting standards? Again, that's if the odor is strong, what can we do about it if there is no permit setting standards? Wilbert Yang with Tetra Tech, I'll ask you to jump in on that question if you can, please.
Yep. So under the organic matter recycling regulation, which is the regulation that would encompass the composting facility, there are requirements to establish an odor management plan in terms of how to deal with odors as they come in. So certainly there will be complaints that you can register with the RDOS. At the same time, the Ministry of Environment would be involved in terms of hearing those complaints and making sure that the composting facility is not causing pollution.
Thank you, Wilbert. Another question, this one from Annette Engel. If this property gets taken out of the ALR, the Agricultural Land Reserve, will the RDOS replace the land maybe put 1050 Spiller Road in as ALR, or agricultural land. So again, that question is, if this property gets taken out of the ALR, will the RDOS replace the land, possibly put 1050 Spiller Road in as ALR? That question, who would like to answer that one? That's an interesting one. Don't know if we have an answer for that. How about Christopher Garish? Christopher.
Sure, thanks. I could take a partial stab at providing an answer for that. And just from past experience, I am aware of instances where the Commission, in relation to exclusion applications, has asked for parts of the same property that are under application and may not be in the reserve to be included as part of their approval process. I'm not aware of them extending that to a different parcel. And so I'm familiar with 1313 Grayback, but I'm not familiar with 1050 Spiller. So I'm going to end my answer there, and maybe somebody else can jump in for the rest of it.
Do you want to give that a try, Andrew Reeder, and then we'll get to another question?
Sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what 1050 Spiller Road is, if that's the landfill itself, or if it's referring to a property that we bought adjacent to the landfill on Reservoir Road. I'm not sure which one this would be. Okay, well, I'm sure Annette may respond back with clarification on that. But let's go to Steve Boltby. He's on the phone now and has his hand up, and another question. Steve?
Thank you. Just going back to methane. So if we get 20 meters cubed per cubic meter, if we'll just run figures. If we're running 8,000 tons times 20, that's 16,000. That's completely unprotected. So we've got a full 18,000 being vented. Would that be a reasonable assumption?
Well, Wilbert, do you have any thoughts on that question? It's a question.
Can you repeat that question again?
We have 8,000 tons coming in annually, and if we're looking at 20 meters cubed to a ton of sludge of methane being produced, that is 16,000 cubic meters cubed of methane being produced off of the current 8,000 that's currently just unprotected. It's just being vented out. Does that make sense to you?
I think an important consideration is the fact that the material coming into the site is coming in year round. So it's 8,000 tons for the whole year, but over the course of the year, the quantity coming in is much smaller. So how much you're managing on a weekly or monthly basis is basically, on a monthly basis, you're dealing with 1/12 of that. So from there, you're managing that material in that way. And I think the purpose of composting is to get the organic materials in the sludge to break down so that you are not producing methane.
What do you think we have coming off of 8,000 tons then? Is there must be some estimate of what's being produced currently?
There are reports that kind of have been measured to see what kind of emissions or particulates that are being released from composting of various either food waste. So that is there, and the purpose of the intent of the facility would be to contain all of that and push it through biofilters before being released in the environment.
Yeah, but I'm not asking. What I'm asking is what's being generated now.
What's being generated?
Yeah, in the form of methane, in the form of odor, in the form of we're claiming a 70% reduction to this. A 70% reduction, it sounds great. What are we producing now that there is no reduction on?
I mean, there's CO2, carbon dioxide from the breakdown of that material.
But can you quantify it?
We don't have. We can follow up and quantify it for you later on.
Well,
Okay, thank you very much.
if we're running 20 as a figure, just which I just pulled off the internet, 20 off 8,000, that's 16,000 units of something. Would that be agreed? Okay, we could agree.
Okay.
But yeah, if you put down your question, we will find that information and respond to you appropriately.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to hold on for just a moment and lower your hand there if you can, Steve. You want to give other people a chance to ask questions. And a reminder, RDOS regionalconnections.ca, that's RDOS regionalconnections.ca is our public engagement site here at the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen. And Steve, if you wanted to put a specific question in there in the composting section at the bottom, there's a Q&A with some specifics, that would be helpful. And then we can certainly answer that question right away. It'll give us a chance to potentially do a little more investigating. Getting back to a question earlier from Annette Engel, she mentioned that the property she was speaking of was the property that Canadian Horizons wants to develop just north of the landfill. She suggests that could become part of the ALR instead of residential zoning. Any questions to do with 1050 Spiller Road, which is Naramata Bench, can be directed to the developer, and that's canadianhorizons.ca. You can contact the City of Penticton's planning department as well. And at this point, the public engagement process is likely to be hosted by the developer. At such time, the City of Penticton would also be looking at an information session, but we're not dealing with that topic here tonight. That is a completely different development within the City of Penticton. But again, if you have questions specific to that development at 1050 Spiller Road, you can contact Canadian Horizons. Their website is canadianhorizons.ca. Okay, I want to go through a couple more questions that we've received here through our system, and let me just roll through it here. Just stand by for one moment. Here. Okay. There we are. Okay. Nope, I think that's all the questions we have. Oh, here we are. If the facility has odor problems that cannot be addressed as a burden to the neighbors, is there any contingency to shut it down without taxpayers suffering huge losses? Will you purchase the land of neighbors? That's a tough question. I think we'll have to ask Andrew Reeder if he can jump in on that. I mean, there's some assumptions made here, but again, if the facility has odor problems that cannot be addressed as a burden to neighbors, is there any contingency to shut the facility down without suffering huge losses?
So, I mean, I guess the thought would be is that I think Wilbur mentioned it earlier that we're actually going to be following underneath the OMAR regulation. So that's and we would have to have an odor control plan. So if it came to a situation where we were causing harm to our neighbors, you know, certainly we'd have to consider that. The intent with this, certainly when we've looked at modeling, when we've looked at the reductions that that we're projecting at least, that this shouldn't be an issue. So I guess to answer your question is, it shouldn't be an issue. If it is, then obviously we would have to cross that bridge at that time. I can't see that happening though. Certainly not with what we've witnessed in other places, and certainly, you know, as Wilbert has said, that it's a tried and true technology.
Okay, great, thank you. And I notice we have a question here from email. That's through publicworks@rdos.bc.ca. This question is from Daniel Friesen. What would the annual operating cost of a facility like this be? What does it cost per ton of material? Again, the annual operating cost of a facility like this and the cost per ton of material. That sounds like a Wilbert Yang type of question. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. So the facility's annual operating cost for a combined facility would be about $1.8 million a year. In terms of processing cost, without the grant, it would be about $115 a ton, 115. With the grant, it will bring the unit processing cost down to about $75 per ton.
Robert, we have about 8 minutes left in our electronic town hall. We want to thank you all very much for taking part, and thank you to our panelists as well. A couple of quick notes here. The Solid Waste Management Plan has identified composting as one of the best ways to divert waste entering landfills. And the new composting operation would be designed to accommodate up to 35,000 tons of organic material per year. There are some advantages to having an organics facility at 1313 Grayback Mountain Road, and I think it's worth mentioning. One of them is that it offers commercial retailers another means to dispose of food waste. Also, it does extend the life of the landfill by diverting food waste. It creates food waste compost, which is a soil additive, of course, for the agricultural community. And part of this plan as well is to reduce waste times by diverting yard waste to this new property. So just quickly scanning here to see if we have any other questions. I'm going to check our Q&A one more time. And let's see here. It looks like we have one more question. Oh, there we are, from Brian. He says his apologies, this has been discussed, but with a plant footprint of 15 acres, were there options directly adjacent to the landfill on the east side of Spiller Road, directly across from the landfill? Options on the landfill property itself? That sounds like either Len or Andrew might want to answer that question for us. We'll go with Len Robson. Nope.
Sure, I can take a shot at that. So there is two sites, and I think it was mentioned earlier on in this this presentation. There are two sites available. Really, there is the Grayback Mountain Road property, and yes, they can build this facility within the existing landfill footprint. And maybe Andrew wants to add a bit more to that.
Yeah, we'll ask Andrew Reeder to talk about the option of keeping potentially an organics landfill, organics composting facility rather, on the existing landfill property, and some of the challenges there. I believe, Andrew, are it's not as flat as that 1313 Grayback Mountain Road property. Is that right?
Yeah, we actually could build just right across the road. So part of the landfill extends east of Spiller Road. So we actually could build on that portion of the land. The challenges there would be, obviously, it's a hillside. So trying to make that work would be a bit of a challenge. I think the other challenges in terms of public would be that, be more exposed to the public. It would be right adjacent to the road itself. And, so it'd be a visual impact, it'd be more of an odor impact, and certainly more of a cost. So when we looked at the options of 1313 Grayback Road, it seemed to have the lowest impacts on the public and be the most cost-effective solution. Does that answer your question?
And that was, oh, there we have another one. That was through our messenger service here through WebEx. Here's another one from Steve. So we agree that 8,000 tons annual is coming in now. So this will be for you, Wilbert Yang, another math question. 8,000 tons annual coming in now, 8,000 tons vented, 35,000 tons to the new site annually, 70% reduction, that is 24,500 less. Does that mean that we expect to escape 10,500? Is that not an increase? So again, it's a bit of a math question, and I think it's something we may pick up on our RDOS Regional Connections website, because it might be a little more involved than we can do for a few minutes.
Yeah, I'll try and capture it as quickly as I can. Back in 2007, 2008, we did a detailed odor assessment of the Gore cover system. So the Gore cover system is basically a Gore-Tex kind of cover that goes over top. What we found in our assessment was that when you put this cover on top of composting piles, you reduce the odor level coming off by 95%. At the same time, in terms of reducing odors of the existing facility, this facility will be under the Gore cover system, and on top of that, there will be an additional cover on top of the building. So since most of the organics and sludge will be under a building and under a cover, it will reduce the odor significantly from what it is compared to right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Wilbert. So just a couple of minutes left. I want to remind everyone who's watching right now or listening, that the results from this part of the public engagement process and the overall public engagement process, which wraps up on October 2nd, will be submitted to the Regional District of Okanagan-Similkameen Board of Directors as part of an application to the Agricultural Land Commission. You can visit rdosregionalconnections.ca. That's the public engagement website for the RDOS. If you'd like more information on this project, you can also find the citizen survey there and answer some questions about your region. And you can send email anytime between now and October 2nd, or actually anytime after that as well, because your questions are always welcome. publicworks@rdos.bc.ca, but the public engagement portion, which will be presented to the RDOS board, that wraps up on October 2nd. You can also, of course, always mail in questions, or you can drop them off at the RDOS office, 101 Martin Street in Penticton. And if you have any other questions, the number to call to leave a message outside of this broadcast here is 490-4129. That's 250-490-4129. That's the RDOS Solid Waste Department. I'm just doing a quick scan of our system here, and I don't see any other questions. And we have just a couple of minutes left. And unless any of our panelists wanted to add any final thoughts, I think we're going to just leave a few final thoughts here. And it looks like we have one more question. Just trying to find it here. Maybe it's with a hand. Is oh, at the bottom. Let's see here. Trying to find this question. Danny Francisco is the Information Services manager here at the RDOS, and he's been helping us with this. So here's his final question that he's submitted through our system, and it's come in. It says, would the compost produced be certified organic compost? There you go. So one final question, and it looks like Andrew Reeder will answer that for us. Andrew, go ahead, please.
Sure. So what we'd be looking at is creating different streams for the composting. So we would have the biosolids stream that would be used for landscaping type of materials, and those would certainly not be certified. The other materials that we would have sort of with the food waste and yard waste, we would be looking at possibly 2 or 1 stream. It would really sort of depend. We'd be looking at becoming OMRI certified, which is the organic food standard. And we can produce a organic food standard, and so we would be likely pushing to that direction. And it would be a question of whether or not we're going to have 2 food streams, one meeting the organic standard and one not, or having all of it meet the organic standard. And then the biosolids would be just simply for just for landscaping use.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Andrew. And that question came from David Cozier. I would like to thank again everyone who took time to take part in this tonight, including our panelists. We've had with us here on our WebEx platform the chair of the RDOS, Carla Kazakovich, Len Robson with the City of Penticton, Wilbert Yang, who is an engineer with Tetra Tech, Christopher Garris, the Planning Department at RDOS, Andrew Reeder, who is with Public Works at the RDOS. My name is Eric Thompson. I'm the Communications Coordinator with the RDOS. Please remember to check our website, the RDOS public engagement website, rdosregionalconnections.ca, for more information on this proposal. Thank you again very much for watching, and we will be talking to you again soon. Thank you.